Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome on to the program. Today on the show we have computer and technology news. Lots to talk about. It's been a busy weekend, and hey everyone, we hope that you had a good one at that. So computeramerica.com, that's the first thing we should mention. That is the place to find everything with the program, be it past shows, future shows, podcasts. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then the podcast is the next best place wherever podcasts are heard. We have a directory up on our website, and on top of that, of course, you can also check out the video portion, which is over at twitch.tv/Computer America. Now, all that being said, let's again, just hopefully the weekend was kind to you. There's been some stuff going on here behind the scenes, some family members getting surgery and whatnot, but, it all went well, and, we're ready for another week of Computer America. So everyone sit back, relax, here we go. Computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. So a lot of ways that we could take this, but I think for, a more relevant topic, that would be this one here. And let's see, I think this is probably going to be the best place to pull from. This is coming to us from The Independent, and they're talking about, cryptocurrency. And what about cryptocurrency? Well, if you're invested in it, then I probably don't need to tell you, but 10% of Bitcoin in particular, and really, whatever Bitcoin does, the entire market does, Bitcoin went down about 10%, and this is very relevant to a story that we did about a week or two ago, that at the beginning of September was this grand experiment by the president of El Salvador, if you recall, where he wanted to make cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, legal tender in the entire country. And it's harder than it sounds. You can't just say, everyone start accepting Bitcoin. No, that means that all of your citizens have to create a wallet and be able to hold Bitcoin. You also have to have every vendor in the country, and El Salvador is not exactly the most advanced economy in the, kind of in the Western Hemisphere. I should say the Northern Hemisphere. They're a relatively poor South American country. So, having, obviously there is widespread use of smartphones, so that definitely helps the adoption of cryptocurrency. But by and large, this was a huge ask that the government has been pushing forward, and really a grand experiment on its population. Never before has it been the case where the government said, cryptocurrency is, legal tender. You have to accept it. And that's really, the most important part. It's not even like, those who want to, can use it and those who don't, whatever. That may work for the citizens. They may be able to trade their cryptocurrency for, whatever Venezuelan currency is there. But at the same time, if you are a place of business, you have to be able to accept cryptocurrency. Makes it very, very complicated. Now, here's also the other thing, where you have to have a certain amount, and of course the government is backing this up, so the government itself is holding a large amount of Bitcoin. And last I checked, I think that they were holding about 700 coins, and I think that said that, and that means that they're holding like $50 million worth of Bitcoin. It's quite a bit. So when you have an entire country doing this weird, accepting cryptocurrency as actual, as actual currency, well, this 10% drop means that your country just lost 10% of its value. Could you imagine the US dollar in a matter of hours losing 10% of its value? It's really something that only cryptocurrency can do. Now, but that did not faze the president, because obviously if you look at that, and if they were holding $50 million or something like that in cryptocurrency, you would think, oh wow, I just lost $5-6 million. This is really bad. Nope, he doubled down and he bought the dip in true Wall Street bet fashion. Kudos. I mean, hey, he's backing it up. El Salvador has used a mini Bitcoin price crash as an opportunity to add to its cryptocurrency holdings. The president revealed that the Central American country bought 150 Bitcoins over the weekend, worth roughly about $6.7 million. He made the announcement on Sunday night, shortly after the price of Bitcoin fell from above $48,000 to below $46,000, so about a $3,000 swing, and again, about 9% difference. And he mentioned that we just bought the dip, 150 new coins. El Salvador now holds 700 coins. And of course, they say, and another quote from him saying that they can never beat you if you buy the dips. Presidential advice. This gentleman is very bold in his predictions, and obviously, he has to commit to Bitcoin and these price fluctuations, because this is his idea. The purchase comes less than 2 weeks after they officially introduced Bitcoin as a form of legal tender, which, as we mentioned, was the first in the world to do so. The country's Bitcoin law aims to reap the benefits from the borderless and decentralized technology. However, it's also blighted by the major price fluctuations because, I hate to use the adage, but at the end of the day, the thing keeping the value of Bitcoin in the tens of thousands of dollars is, of course, just confidence. Is the confidence that it's worth something, that it is that you can't mess with it, that it is intrinsically valuable by itself. There's nothing backing it. The fact that it's $46,000 right now is because people believe it is worth $46,000. Now, of course, by that same token, you can imagine, well, hey, people might think it's worth $100,000, or people might think it's worth $10,000, but you need adoption like this, just on a much, much larger scale, to get it to, kind of keep doing what it's doing. But yeah, so they said that the cryptocurrency slashes remittance fees, which accounts for roughly 23% of El Salvador's GDP, while also serving as a hedge against inflation and reducing the reliance on the US dollar. It also offers a direct route to financial services in a country where around 70% of the population do not have a bank account. So a number of benefits there, but by and large, it's kind of scary at the same time that you have so much money for a relatively poor country wrapped all up in this. Now, saying that within hours of law coming into effect on September 7th, the price of Bitcoin fell around 15% amid difficulties with the state-backed digital wallet. So yeah, this is a story that we will continue to watch. If I had to put a prediction to it, I would say that this gentleman is tying his political future to the price fluctuations of Bitcoin. And if I can't say one way or the other, but clearly this guy likes to gamble. That is about all I can say on that one. That is one of the largest gambles I've ever seen. It could turn out really, really well for him, but gambling doesn't usually turn out really well for anyone. Okay. So that was story number one. Story number two, we can also get into a couple of these. There was one here that was really... Okay. I have followed this from when it was a more... I followed it in real time, and I haven't really done much follow-up on it, so I wanted to take this opportunity when the federal government brought forward, not antitrust, brought forward let's see, it's not antitrust, it's not defamation, it's like perjury, lying, fraud. There you go, that's the word, fraud. Brought forward fraud charges against the CEO of Theranos. Yes, that was the company. The one that promised to do very quick, very cheap, and efficient DNA testing and DNA sequencing, and it was going to revolutionize everything. This was back in like 2013, 2014, and well, we have an update. And it's more context. The update is that the feds have brought forward the fraud charges, and now the case is starting to develop. And you have these situations where you have evidence coming to light in this public trial, and I'm just fascinated by this. It's showing that startup companies, how much smoke and mirrors is really going into a lot of really this particular Theranos story. It was a lot. So today we have the first direct link between the problems of Theranos' labs and Elizabeth Holmes, former manager of Assay Systems and former manager of Assay Systems. I can't even begin to say this gentleman's last name, Surica, and his job was preparing blood tests for use in patients. The system was unreliable, describing herself as stressed and unhappy and concerned with the way that the launch was going. So they quit. So the two had met with she had met with Holmes to explain why she was resigning. She didn't think the Edisons were really what Theranos was all about. That was the DNA sequencing machine that they were using, and they said that they weren't good enough for patient use. Holmes told her that Theranos had promised to deliver to customers and didn't have much of a choice except to go ahead with the launch, even if they were incorrect. Now think about this. These machines were meant to sequence the DNA and provide better medical care for patients. They'd be able to get down to a genetic level and help maybe find different markers for better responses to different kinds of treatment, and the results coming out of Theranos could have shaped people's level of care. If they had cancer and they saw the particular genetic markers that said that they would react better to chemotherapy versus some other kind of drug, then yeah, they go with that. So they were really gambling with people's lives here, all because, well, they had to launch. And this isn't just pushing a deadline. And this is, this whole story is really highlighting just how much they pushed to meet this impossible deadline. So Holmes, who was standing trial for wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, hadn't been directly linked to lab inadequacies in the testimony from the two previous witnesses. But Holmes was hands-on when it came to the R&D lab, even emailing the scientists at 1 a.m. to ask how the validation testing was going. When she quit, she printed out and saved email correspondence because, quote, I was worried about the launch, I was scared that things would not go well, and I was worried that I would be blamed. This was a direct violation of non-disclosure agreements that she had signed. So a little bit in trouble for printing off NDA protected emails, but hey, protecting yourself, always important. So so they say that her account corroborated with that of a whistleblower, and earlier this week, she testified that the secrecy was the norm at Theranos, and that she was discouraged from listing the company on her LinkedIn page, saying that there was generally guidance not to share outside of one's immediate group. Found that frustrating. The secrecy meant she couldn't communicate directly with the hardware team about the problems she was experiencing with the machines. The instructions to keep things secret came from either Holmes or her co-defendant, Sunny Balwani, who is being tried separately. And by the way, I guess the part that really gets at this was these 1 a.m. emails. And again, how crazy the timelines that they tried to push here, saying that one of the emails came at 1:14 a.m. on a Saturday to after being chastised about work priorities, and checked in to see how the tests that she wanted validated were doing. It seemed that late hours were the norm. Another one from the co-founder with Home CC suggested that the team wasn't working hard enough, saying, quote, "Please note the software team was here till 3:07 a.m. and it was already here now at 10 a.m., he wrote. He then scolded the team for leaving machines idle in the evenings. Essentially, you're not working hard enough because you're not working until 3 a.m. and you're not back in the office by 10 a.m. the next day." Which, less than 7 hours of sleep, let alone time for yourself, time to wind down. I used to work 12-hour shifts. Even 12-hour shifts did not leave enough time in the day to, kind of just do basic human functions. And yeah, working, 20-hour days or, 18-hour days is just crazy. I can't even imagine. The pressure and secrecy made her uncomfortable. The Edison 3.0 and 3.5 devices weren't reliable. She went on vacation in August 2013, and when she came back, she found to her surprise that those machines would be used to test patient samples. So essentially, behind her back, even though she was in charge of this whole program, they went ahead and started testing on these machines. Another surprise would be that they would modify others' machines to use smaller samples that Theranos collected. Holmes pressured her to approve tests so that they could move to the clinical lab. So clearly, incredible deadlines that no one would be able to meet. And then on top of that, just inadequate reporting, and just this whole company was just wrought with fraud. And saying, quote, "We are launching no matter what." There you go. So to wrap up this article here, saying that among the emails that they printed, there was one from Theranos VP Daniel Young, emailed Holmes to say that the data was missing from the server about tests on a version of the Edison devices. In response, Young wrote that the wrong cartridges had been used in those runs and that he recommended repeating them, saying that that wasn't true. And 5 days after the 1 a.m. email she received, she submitted her resignation, saying it was difficult because the last 8 years of working felt like that they were making a big difference, but the whole company, by and large, was a huge letdown. So there you go. It was, so she testified with immunity from prosecution for her testimony, and will return to the stand next week. But it really paints a picture of just how dysfunctional of a company Theranos really was there towards the end of the tenure. Just incredible stuff, and probably re-update that after the whole court trial does its whole thing, but still very, very strange. Okay, story number 2, story number 3. Let's go ahead and continue on here and talk about, how about, a lot of good ones. We don't talk often about AMD devices and their security vulnerabilities, because Intel has taken such a spot with Afterburn, Ghost, all these other very notable security flaws in the Intel architecture that AMD has been able to slide past with, not a lot of scrutiny. But it looks like we have one of our first big stories when it comes to AMD. And let's go ahead and get into this. This coming to us from TechSpot. And they're saying that millions of AMD PCs affected by new CPU driver flaw need to be patched ASAP. So if you have an AMD PC, maybe it's time to update your drivers for security reasons, saying that attackers can easily steal passwords and encryption keys from system memory. Sounds very familiar to past vulnerabilities with Intel. Now, they're saying that recently AMD disclosed a vulnerability in the AMD Platform Security Processor chipset driver that allows malicious actors to dump memory pages and probably extract sensitive information such as passwords and storage decryption keys. The flaw is tracked under, and they give the code here, which we're not going to read out, but all these articles and more will be available over at computeramerica.com. Just check out today's show notes. It is the 20th, but they're saying that it affects a wide range of AMD power systems, with all Ryzen desktop, mobile, and workstation CPUs being affected. Additionally, PCs equipped with the 6th and 7th generation AMD A series APU or modern Athlon processors are vulnerable to the same attack. So this is very fundamental to the AMD series of chips. So like anything AMD CPU wise is going to be affected by these. So they mentioned that security researchers over at Zero Peril discovered the flaw back in April. His team tested a proof of concept exploit on several AMD machines and found it relatively easy to leak several gigabytes of uninitialized physical memory pages when logged in as a user with low privileges. That's the important part. It's not just about admin privileges or things like that. It's just anyone on the computer. They mentioned that at the same time, the attack method can bypass exploitation mitigation like kernel address space layout randomization. So very, very effective. Bypasses a lot of the innate security that is found on these AMD chips. The good news is that there's a patch available for this flaw. One way to ensure to get them is to download the latest AMD drivers, and another way is to ensure that it is patched against this issue is to install the latest Patch Tuesday update from Microsoft. So there you go, AMD, little. It's very, very, very reminiscent of Intel, where they do this kind of trickery to run these processors faster by kind of preloading, and I'm not even sure if that's exactly what happened here. It's being able to dump the physical memory pages that are unprotected and unencrypted to somewhere where they can be read. But yeah, processors, they're very, very vulnerable to hacks lately. It seems to be a favorite of these big exploits because they work, undoubtedly, because they work. There you have it. AMD update, patch. Story number 3. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and talk about this was probably the biggest news of the day, and it has to do with Twitter. Twitter will pay over $800 million to settle a class action suit. Well, hold your horses. You're probably not going to get $800 million. And anyone other than the lawyer is probably not going to see much of anything. But hey, it is a significant fine levied against a social media company. So let's find out why. So Twitter has agreed to pay $809.5 million to settle a class action suit filed by shareholders in 2016. Investors allege that Twitter masked the company's slowing growth, while executives, including the CEO and co-founders, sold stock for hundreds of millions of dollars in insider profits. The plaintiff said Twitter was tracking daily active users as the key metric for engagement in 2015, but it was still reporting monthly active user figures. The daily active user measurement indicated engagement was dropping or staying flat, according to the lawsuit. So essentially, right there, they're saying that investors only had access to the monthly active users, whereas the daily active users, that information was kept inside the company. And then, of course, those who were inside the company could react much quicker to the new information than investors could themselves, and thereby, again, insider trading. Twitter says that the proposed settlement, which the court has yet to approve, resolves all claims against Twitter and other named defendants without any admission, because, that's always seems to be a thing with these hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in settlements, is that, none of these companies ever did anything. There's no admission of guilt. It's just all finally settled for close to $1 billion, but it's no one's fault, of course. Now, they say that without any admission, concession, or finding of any fault, liability, or wrongdoing by the company or any defendant. Twitter and all of the individuals named as defendants in the suit have denied any wrongdoing. And there you go. Just the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934 is what they broke. The company plans to use cash on hand for the settlement. It's expected to pay the sum by the end of the year. So a lot of these tech companies have a lot of cash on hand, not a lot of revenue, not a lot of profit. Well, actually lots of revenue, but not a lot of profit, but always cash on hand. And they're just going to dig deep into their massive holdings and just pay it out of hand. In 2018, the earnings report, Twitter started reporting average monetizable daily active users. It said that this was the only engagement metric it would disclose to investors going forward, partly because it's more accurate reflection of how it's making money from users. Probably monthly active users is probably more important. Well, just active users in general, because people can still be paying more for it, but if you don't have that level of growth and engagement, the only way that these large tech companies ever tend to break even is by, of course, growing. That is the name of the game. That, if you're Facebook, you start eyeing China and India. If you're Google, you start eyeing China. If you're Apple, you start eyeing Africa. You always look for the next growth opportunity, because being stagnant means that you are shrinking, you're losing ground, and you are, just not going to be successful in the tech space. So there you have it. It's Twitter will pay $800 million. That will go to investors, and I'm sure that a large majority of that will probably not go to you, me, or anyone else that happens to have, any kind of money in with Twitter. Let's see. So let's have a bit of a distraction here. Distraction is a good word for it, because Amazon thinks it is too. Amazon and their automated driver camera AI are punishing drivers for mistakes that they didn't make. And I guess this is pretty standard when it comes to delivery drivers, where you have this camera facing back at them, and the AI is able to scan the drivers, and any mistake that they make looking at their phone, if they don't check their mirrors, if they don't do this, that, or the other, can actually hurt their overall driving competency score, which in turn hurts their level of compensation, pay, and their ability for, kind of pay raises. Now, automation always has that problem where it's not 100% accurate, and then, of course, correcting it is really, really hard. So let's find out more about the story. And they're saying that in early 2021, Amazon installed AI-powered cameras in delivery vans at one of its depots in Los Angeles. A delivery driver at the facility said that the camera in his van started to incorrectly penalize him whenever cars cut him off, an everyday occurrence in LA traffic. Maintain safe distance, the camera installed above the seat would say when the car cut him off. That data would be sent to Amazon and would be used to evaluate his performance that week and determine whether he got a bonus. Saying that every time I got that I need to make a right-hand turn, it inevitably happens. A car cuts me off to move into my lane, and the camera in this really dystopian dark robotic voice shouts at me, saying it's so disconcerting, it's upsetting when I didn't do anything. Because of course there's only so much a defensive driver can do. You cannot account for other drivers, but Amazon is going to try to do that. In February, Amazon announced that it would install cameras made by AI tech startup in its Amazon-branded delivery vans as an innovation to keep drivers safe, which is pretty crazy that dash cams are important. We've had a number of them on the show, talked with the creators. There's, lots of evidence out there when these things go right. They are the perfect thing to kind of point to and go, I was in the fault, or I was not at fault for this incident. Dash cams are important. Everyone should have one. They're a great source of kind of, not insurance, but just knowing that, whatever happens, you've captured it on camera. But I guess the moment that you turn it around and say, let's face it, it's Amazon, you start to use these cameras as an efficiency dictator, determining if someone is doing it correctly. It goes from safety to just another stick to kind of poke people with to do better and better and cut time and cut efficiency or improve efficiency. They're saying that, and Motherboard spoke to 6 Amazon delivery drivers in California, Texas, Kansas, Alabama, and Oklahoma, and the owner of an Amazon delivery company in Washington, who said that rather than encouraging safe driving, the cameras punish drivers for so-called events that are beyond their control or don't constitute unsafe driving. The cameras will punish them for looking at a side mirror or fiddling with the radio, stopping ahead of a stop sign at a blind intersection, or getting cut off by another car in dense traffic. They mentioned that when the camera detects an event, it uploads the footage to the manufacturer's interface, accessible to Amazon and its delivery companions, and in some instances, a robotic voice speaks out to the driver. Things like distracted driving or maintain safe distance. Essentially, the camera, and of course, if you're watching the video portion, we can go ahead and, right here, they have the example here of all the different abilities of the camera, and they even show distracted driving, what that looks like and how that works. It is very, very advanced, but not advanced enough. So they're saying that Amazon drivers believe that the AI-powered surveillance cameras have served as a cost-saving measure for the company. Amazon delivery drivers and delivery companies, which contract with Amazon and employ drivers, have reportedly been losing income from erroneous citations registered by the manufacturer of the camera. One current Amazon delivery driver in Oklahoma, who asked to remain anonymous, told Motherboard that the biggest problem with these cameras is the frequency with which they detect false stop sign violations. Saying, quote, most false positives we get are stop sign violations. Either we stop after the stop sign so we can see around a tree or a bush, and it dings us for that, or it catches a yield sign as stop signs. A few times we've been in the country on a dirt road where there are no stop signs, but the cameras flag a stop sign. Multiple drivers said this means that they've started to stop at stop signs twice, once before a stop sign so that the camera can register that they stopped adequately for it, and then the next time so that they don't get that false positive. Saying that one of the safety improvements we've made this year is the industry-leading telematics and camera-based safety technology across our delivery fleet. That is what Amazon is kind of bragging about now. This technology provides drivers real-time alerts to help them stay safe when they are on the road. So there you go. They're saying that since Amazon installed these cameras, Miller claims that the accidents have decreased by 48%, and stop sign and signal violations have decreased 77%. Driving without a seatbelt decreased 60%, following distance decreased by 50%, and distracted driving has decreased 75%. So, of course, Amazon's going to have all of the metrics that they need to really highlight that this is going to be a really, really good thing. But for the delivery companies, they're saying that the scores that they receive can ruin a scorecard, meaning that the delivery company doesn't receive income it needs to pay for vehicle repairs, consumables, damages, support staff, and bonuses for drivers. Every week, Amazon gives each delivery driver a tier rating, which ranges from fantastic, good, fair, to poor, based on a series of metrics. And Miller, the Amazon spokesperson, said that each delivery service partner is trained on the safety technology and are required to communicate with their teams on how to improve their scorecard. So skipping forward here a little bit, rather long article, which Motherboard is always super good at, but so you'll find that in the show notes. But they're saying that the delivery company owner in Washington said that the number of events registered per week The amount of labor involved in reviewing them and the low likelihood that an event will be overturned made the appeal process futile, saying that it's constantly beeping at all drivers all day long. This creates a massive distraction to drivers on the road, and it creates a massive workload for delivery companies to review video. It's way too much labor to get done. If you have 600 or 700 events a week, drivers might never get coaching on it. So obviously being too sensitive, and of course being erroneously sensitive, is going to make these systems only beneficial really to Amazon. I mean, all the metrics that they were outlining are definitely good to try to improve, but if you can't dispute them or you can't address them because there are hundreds of violations every single week, regardless of what you do, you can't get better because you don't know what you're actually getting faulted for. Amazon is well known in the industry, and not just with delivery drivers and their delivery partners, but for their workload that they put on their employees within the warehouses and places like that. Let's face it, Amazon manages 1 million employees, like 1 million, short of the entirety of the United States government, which has a lot of different rungs, has a lot of people, has a lot of oversight and ways to address themselves. It's incredible that a private company is able to employ 1 million people and somehow be able to manage 1 million people. And that is a massive operation, and one that will inevitably have its stress points. And its warehouse workers and delivery drivers definitely seem to be stress points because there are so many of them. And they're so vital, really, to the overall success of what Amazon does. Hopefully they'll do better. They probably can do better, but yeah, it's a wait and see. Let's go ahead and talk about let's go ahead and talk about Bitcoin mining. So obviously Bitcoin mining, I think that people, if they're not too familiar with the program here, then they might be surprised to hear that even though it's Bitcoin mining, it's all digital. There's nothing really physical about it. And, whenever you tell them that things like NFTs are super bad for the environment, Bitcoin is super bad for the environment, Bitcoin mining and validation and all this stuff, that there are real world ramifications for this digital technology, they seem surprised. And this next article kind of highlights that a little bit more, where Bitcoin mining producing tons of waste. This coming to us from BBC Tech. And yeah, they're saying that Bitcoin mining produces electronic waste, or e-waste, annually comparable to small IT equipment waste of a place like the Netherlands, research shows. So we already know that places like cryptocurrency and really just Bitcoin is really the big one. Bitcoin mining has the same power consumption as like the entirety of like Venezuela. It would be like if Bitcoin mining was its own country, it would be like number 11 or something like that in the entire world. It's very energy intensive. But there's also the other side to it where it's also hardware intensive. You run graphics cards 24/7. You run CPUs 24/7. When something breaks, you don't have time to just sit down and repair it. No, you throw it out and toss a new one in. You have expected life ranges and expected performance for each card, and as long as they meet those metrics, there's no need to repair it. If something is supposed to, if something costs you $500, but you're supposed to receive $900 of cryptocurrency out of it, and you hit that benchmark, then it costs less to just replace it with something new than it would be to repair it. Things are, time is money, productivity is money, and you just need things to work and work constantly. So e-waste, it's a big problem. They're saying that miners of the cryptocurrency each year produce 30,000 tons of e-waste. And that's what they estimate, saying that the average, that averages 272 grams, or about 10 ounces per transaction, they say. And by the way, there's a lot of Bitcoin transactions, hundreds an hour. It is, that's really incredible. By comparison, the iPhone 13 weighs about 6 ounces. So when it comes to e-waste, of course, it's all done in tonnage. And you can imagine that for every transaction of Bitcoin, you're looking at about an iPhone and a half worth of weight when it comes to e-waste. Miners earn money by creating Bitcoin, but the computing use a large amount of energy. And they said that they audit Bitcoin transactions in exchange for an opportunity to acquire digital currency, saying that attention has been focused on the electricity that this consumes, which is more than the Philippines, and the greenhouse gas pollution that can be caused as a result. A lot of that went down when China cracked down on cryptocurrency mining. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that these entire provinces of China were rebooting old hydroelectric dams and coal mining factories, and then dedicating all of the energy produced from these old electric power stations, and dedicating all of that to cryptocurrency mining. It was quite the operation, but it did have a lot of side effects. Now, but as computers used for mining become obsolete, it also generates lots of e-waste. The researchers estimate that Bitcoin mining devices have an average lifespan of only about 1.3 years, because a lot of it is consumer level goods. It's the same graphics cards that you would be competing for at your retail place. It's the same computers that you'd be buying off the store shelves. Of course, some of them can be more optimized, and there are specific pieces of hardware for cryptocurrency mining, but by and large, it's the same GPU, it's the same CPU, it's the same power supply, just a lot less, monitors and other useless things. Now, with that being said, it's all the same, but I'm hoping a lot of you out there get more than a year and a half out of your devices, because these things are run 24/7. And as a result, the amount of e-waste produced is comparable to a small IT and telecommunications equipment waste of a country like the Netherlands. So the entirety of the Netherlands, and of course that includes mobile phones, personal computers, printers, and telephones. That includes everything. And if you haven't been keeping track, we are having an e-waste kind of emergency, because a lot of it was sent to China for processing. And China would just then turn around and sell it to places like the Philippines, Malaysia, other places that are India as well. They would sell it to these much poorer countries that would then go about the very caustic, damaging, deadly service of breaking down e-waste into recyclable material. It's one thing to recycle e-waste, it's another thing to do it efficiently. And ever since China has stopped accepting e-waste, which was, they were the number one importer of e-waste in the world. And then, of course, I think India did the same. That left places like Malaysia and the Philippines to pick up the slack. And those places are just rolling in e-waste. And it is a very deadly proposition to have to deal with that much stuff. And it's, cryptocurrency is not making it any better. It's a real issue, and it's only getting worse. They're saying that as electricity is a key cost for Bitcoin miners, they have sought out ever more efficient processors. This move has come to the application-specific integrated circuits, but ASICs are so specialized that they become obsolete. They cannot be repurposed for another task or even another type of cryptocurrency mining algorithm. But while the chips can't be reused, much of the weight of Bitcoin equipment is made up of components such as metal casings and aluminum heat sinks, which could be recycled. Globally, just 17% of all e-waste is recycled. However, the number is probably less in some countries in which most miners are based, which in many cases regulations on e-waste are also very poor. So there you go. They say that they suggest that one solution to the problem of e-waste would be for Bitcoin to change the way transactions are verified to a different, less computing intensive system, which is a conversation that has come up often when it comes to Bitcoin, because the amount of work that goes into authenticating a Bitcoin transaction, saying that yes, this is committed to the blockchain, it's verifiable, this Bitcoin actually exists, and it is a remnant of this coin, it goes forward under this coin. This super long list of transactions is artificially difficult to authenticate because they wanted mining to be intensive. They didn't want it to be super simple, so they wanted people to compete over it. They didn't want the amount of Bitcoin being created to be artificially inflated. A lot of the electricity waste, a lot of the e-waste, a lot of the environmental damaging side effects, which is, I guarantee you, not something that they really considered when creating these things. The environmental impact of Bitcoin can be mitigated. There are networks like, I think Ethereum is better than Bitcoin, or at least easier to mine, but they have other cryptocurrency like Litecoin. I think Litecoin is the one that really tries to tackle this. It's much more efficient to mine Litecoin. It's much more efficient to do that on some of these smaller coins. It's just they haven't changed it because they haven't come to a consensus. And changing Bitcoin, you need a vast majority of the people that hold Bitcoin to come together and say, yes, we agree on these changes. So a lot of this waste is just unnecessary fluff being added to the whole system that is cryptocurrency mining. Really unfortunate to see. And hopefully someday soon that does get changed. But there you have it. Okay. That was story number 6. So story number 7. It's kind of a cryptocurrency day, I guess, because with the crash, a lot of things are happening. Check this one out. U.S. probe into Binance reportedly expands investigation into insider trading. Insider trading, it's all the rage right now, be it Twitter, be it Binance, but here we go. Binance is apparently facing more pressure from regulators over possible abuses at its cryptocurrency exchange. Remember, this is on the heels of the OpenSea insider trading that they were doing, where a gentleman was looking at NFTs that were about to go on sale and about to be published on the front page of their sites, purchased them before they went public, or at least before they got highlighted, let them go up on the site to get all the different to get all the publicity that it would normally get by being on the front page and being featured, and then immediately sold it for a profit, i.e. insider trading. So it's happened before with things that are similar to crypto. Why not crypto itself? They're saying that Bloomberg sources said that U.S. officials have expanded their probe of Binance to include possible insider trading and market manipulation. The company hasn't been accused of wrongdoing, but the Commodity Futures Trading Commission have reportedly inquired with potential witnesses about issues like the location of Binance servers, and of course, thus whether the U.S. can pursue any cases. By and large, they're probably going to be in the U.S.'s jurisdiction, but we'll see. The commission had previously launched an investigation, sales of derivatives tied to cryptocurrency, so on and so forth. The Internal Revenue Service and Justice Department are also probing possible money laundering in the exchange. I'm not saying that it's not regulated enough because, it sounds like they're able to bring up a lot of charges and they're going to have cases kind of built up for this kind of thing. But this is a relatively unregulated part of the market. And they're roping it into things like securities and, currency. Which one is it really? I can imagine that the red tape is very difficult. But as one of the only cryptocurrency exchanges to be publicly listed on the New York Stock Exchange, they had to expect this. And I'm surprised that they didn't cross their T's and dot their I's, because these kinds of accusations are going to be plaguing them for ever due to the nature of cryptocurrency. Now, they're saying that Binance said that it was above board. A spokesperson told Bloomberg that the exchange had a zero-tolerance approach to insider trades, as well as ethical codes and security guidelines to prevent these actions. The company added that it fires offenders at a bare minimum. The CFTC has declined to comment. So the heightened scrutiny of Binance, if accurate, would come as part of a larger U.S. crackdown on cryptocurrencies. Officials are concerned about the lack of consumer protection, including regulation, might hurt customers who sign up for services expecting the same safeguards that they do with conventional money. In this case, the focus is on accountability. Insider trading could wreck valuable investments and erode trust in Binance and other crypto exchanges. One of the other sides of becoming mainstream, I remember going to the mall one day, and this was kind of pre-pandemic, but I remember going to the mall and seeing a kiosk there where you could put in money and it would deposit Bitcoin into a digital wallet. And this gentleman, who was older in years, was taking fistful of 20s and pumping them into this kiosk to buy cryptocurrency. And this was pre-crash, so I can't imagine what he's thinking now. Well, I guess it wasn't pre-pandemic. It was during the pandemic. It was kind of when cryptocurrency, or when Bitcoin was at $63,000. Yeah, I'm sure that he lost a good portion, at least a third of his savings, and it was just really, kind of scary to see. Someone who probably is on a fixed income and had, so much faith in what cryptocurrency was doing, seeing it skyrocket from, 9,000 all the way up to 60,000. I'm sure they were hoping to make a quick buck. Didn't really turn out that way. And yeah, just no real protections. If a bank goes under, you're at least 250,000 guaranteed with FDIC. If stocks go down for any kind of reason, including insider trading, there are protections against that. By and large, this is the growing pains of becoming mainstream, and that is regulation. So, yep, I think that's where we will leave off this story and see what happens to Binance in the future. Now, we've talked a lot about cryptocurrency today. I don't know explicitly what caused the cryptocurrency sell-off. It might have been all of this. It might have been the greater downturn in the entire world economy. But yeah, some weird stuff is happening. Everyone out there, be careful. So I think that we have time for one, maybe two more stories, and we have some pretty big ones. How about we talk about Linux really quick? We like open source. Open source drives business. It's a lot of the effort, time, energy, resources poured into open source actually come from the business sector. And, well, it looks like the business sector is craving open source talent. For those who didn't know, at the Open Source Summit in Seattle, the Linux Foundation and edX, the leading massive online course, provider released the 2021 Open Source Jobs Report. In the survey of 200 technical hiring managers and 750 open source pros, the organization found more demand for top open source workers than ever. On top of that, 92% of managers are having trouble finding enough talent, and many of them are also having fits holding on to their existing senior open source staffers. In short, if you've got open source skills, whether you're a developer, a sysadmin, a DevOps expert, or a cloud native pro, there's a good paying job waiting for you out there. And where before the COVID-19 pandemic, you might have been stuck with jobs in your area, you might be able to work from home for a lot of these. Saying that on top of this 50% of employers surveyed stated that they are increasing hires this year. The jobs are out there. The difficulty for companies is that 92% of managers report finding enough talent and hanging on to existing talent in the face of fierce competition. Because obviously, and really this is just the tech space in general, where if you're in the tech space, you are almost encouraged to jump jobs constantly. Every 2 to 3 years, if you can take your skills, take any kind of certifications, whatever kind of improvements you have to your resume, apply to a different job and get a 10 to 15% raise just by doing that, no existing company is going to give you that kind of raise, just for staying there. And yeah, it's definitely encouraged and very, very beneficial to the employees. So indeed, cloud and container skills rank far above Linux in this go-around, with 41% over 32%. That's a big reason why, according to ZipRecruiter, the average annual pay for Kubernetes expert in the U.S. have risen to $150,000. That said, without Linux, neither the cloud nor containers would exist. Even on Microsoft Azure, Linux is now the top operating system. And open source just simply means that it's something that all of the source code is out there. It can be adapted for each individual company's purposes. All the documentation is out there. They don't have to start over from scratch. They can just edit things, plug things in that they need, and make it theirs. Open source is super versatile like that. So yeah, it's Linux, but it's Microsoft's own personal version of Linux. So something to keep in mind with that. But of course, I'm sure a lot of you Linux heads know that out there. Now, the survey also found that DevOps has become the standard method for developing software. Virtually all open source professionals report using DevOps practices in their work, a 50% increase from 3 years ago. In other words, it's all DevOps all the time. Saying that it's not just edX and the Linux Foundation seeing the rise in open source jobs, tech roles have the lowest supply of available talent of any occupation right now. Saying that an AI-driven talent solutions company, ThinkWhy, also found that as of July, jobs in tech had a 1.5% unemployment rate, the lowest of any occupation. Computers run the world. You know it, I know it, we all know it. So to meet this demand, they said it's promising to see in our findings that employers are meeting these needs by increasing training and learning opportunities. We need to empower organizations to invest in this type of training in order to meet the demands of the field. Survey continues on a little bit here. The survey revealed a majority of employers, 88%, now say that hiring certified professionals is a priority. And they mentioned that that's an 87% increase in only 3 years, 57% in 2020 and 47% in 2018. A similar percentage of managers are also willing to pay for employees to obtain certifications. And they mentioned there's CompTIA Linux Plus, the Linux Foundation Certified System Administration, the Linux Foundation Certified Kubernetes Administrator, and Red Hat Certified System Administrator. All of those certifications are highly in demand. Finally, and troubling, discrimination has become more of an issue, with 18% of open source professionals now report they have been discriminated against or made to feel unwelcome in the community. And yeah, just they had a massive study go out, and by and large, disregarding that last one, Linux developers and system administrators and just general open source coders are very in demand in the corporate space. And of course, corporate companies have become even larger during the pandemic. Everyone, that's about the time we have here for today. We hope that you learned something, you enjoyed your Monday. Tune in tomorrow as we have more Computer America. I think we'll have like Nathan Evans or another correspondent here with us. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.